Welcome back, third graders. This week, we are working on Lesson 3, Reading About Time and Sequence. Our standard for this week is RI3. Describe the sequential relationship between a series of events in historical text and identify and use words that signal time order or sequence. Before we begin, let's review our vocabulary. Remember, we are using the terms sequence, relationships, historical. Throughout the lesson, watch for these terms as we read and complete the activities. Listen also for our sequence terms like first, next, last, and finally. Today you will read a history text about how the United States doubled in size. First, you'll read to understand what the author says. Then, you'll reread to look for details about the relationships among the important events in the text. Our text title today is Adventures of the Growing Nation by Terry Hillen. Let's first look at the map at the top and the key directly underneath it. Did you know that when you look at a map, you're reading a map? For instance, the labels on the map tells the place you are studying, and the key at the bottom of the map tells the route that Lewis and Clark took to go on their exploration. There are 3 important names in the text we're going to read today, Thomas Jefferson, who was our President, Meriwether Lewis, who was an American explorer, a soldier, and later a politician, and lastly, William Clark, who was also an explorer and a soldier. He was also an Indian agent and later became a governor. Now, let's read through the text together. As we read, I will stop to point out some important vocabulary that will help us understand the text even better. Remember also that when we read, we are reading historical text, and it's sometimes important to highlight or underline important dates as well. Follow along with me. Imagine that in one day, our country doubled in size. That's what happened to the United States in 1803. Boys and girls, that's an important date. Go ahead and underline 1803. President Thomas Jefferson asked France to sell the United States a vast area of land. Boys and girls, circle the word vast. Vast means large. And so, Thomas Jefferson asked France to sell the United States a large area of land. Overnight, America added more than 828,000 square miles of land west of the Mississippi River. This is known as the Louisiana Purchase. Paragraph 2. Jefferson wanted to know the fastest way across the new land. At the time, there were no maps of the whole country. Jefferson asked Meriwether Lewis to explore the area. Lewis was an army captain whom Jefferson trusted. Lewis also chose another soldier, William Clark, to help him lead the party. To get ready, they first had a large boat built. Underline first, because this is one of the signal words that tells us the first thing they did. The boat took the men down the Ohio River. Then, underline then, that's another one of our signal words. Then they built a base camp near St. Louis, Missouri. They spent the winter of 1803 there. Underline winter of 1803. Again, we see a date. There is a specific reason the author has put a date there. Sometimes authors won't give you signal words. They'll give you dates. Dates signify time and sequence as well. Finally, on May 14th, 1804, underline finally, because finally usually means it's going to come at the end of something. And then there is a date there as well. So underline finally on May 14th, 1804. Lewis and Clark began their famous trip into the new territory. 50 men went with them. They traveled for over 18 months. Finally, that's another signal word. Underline finally. The group made it to the Pacific Ocean. On November 7th, 1805, yep, boys and girls, you've guessed it, underline on November 7th, 1805. Clark wrote, "Ocean in view." Oh, the joy! The group spent a long, cold winter near the ocean. Then, that's another signal word, underline then, they began the trip back home in March 1806. Lewis and Clark arrived in St. Louis in September 1806. You should have underlined in March 1806 from paragraph 4 and September 1806 in paragraph 5. They were greeted with a big party. A century later, underline a century later, in 1904, those are also signal words because they have dates. The World's Fair was held in St. Louis. People honored Lewis and Clark journey at the fair. Boys and girls, look over to your right side at the close reader habits. We have done what close readers do. Underline signal words that tell the order in which the events happen. Think about how those events are related. Think about how those events are related. Now let's look at page 41. As we explore, let's think about what happened after the United States bought land from France. Sometimes you need more than signal words to understand how events are related. Ask questions such as, why did this happen? Let's look at our think section. Reread the text to find out the events of Lewis and Clark's journey. List those events in the graphic organizer. The first one has been done for us. First, President Jefferson asked Lewis to explore the new land. Go back, boys and girls, and look at what we underlined for winter 1803. Write what happened in the winter of 1803. You should have written Lewis and Clark spend the winter in St. Louis, because in paragraph 3 it tells us that. Now, look at May 1804. If you look in paragraph 3, where we underlined finally on May 14th, 1804, you would notice that Lewis and Clark began their journey. Let's take a look at November 1805. If you look in paragraph 4, you see that Lewis and Clark reached the Pacific Ocean. Lastly, look at September 1806. If you look in paragraph 5, you will see that Lewis and Clark arrived back in St. Louis. Now reread paragraphs 2, 3, and 4 to yourself. Think about how the events in those paragraphs are related. Boys and girls, for today's exit ticket, we are answering the short response. What are the important events in the journey of Lewis and Clark? Include details from paragraphs 3, 4, and 5 in your answer. Use the space provided in our exit ticket link at the bottom of this video. Use details from your graphic organizer to organize your response. Remember to use the RACE format for constructed responses to help you and guide you in answering the question. Remember, your exit ticket is in the link at the bottom of this video. Click the link to answer the short response question. What are the important events in the journey of Lewis and Clark? Remember to include details from paragraphs 3, 4, and 5 in your answer. Use the space provided in the link to answer your questions. Boys and girls, thank you so much for your attention today. Good luck on your exit ticket. Come back tomorrow to listen to video number 3.